News, sport, events and more. It's the Talk of Nelson. Talk Nelson Radio.
Welcome to episode 1 of Taking Care of Business, where we find out what is happening to the business market in the Nelson Tasman region. I'm Chris Butler, and with me are Ali Boswick, Chief Executive of the Nelson Tasman Chamber of Commerce, Fiona Wilson, Chief Executive of the Nelson Regional Development Agency, and Simon Duffy, General Manager of Uniquely Nelson. In today's show, we're going to be talking about what is happening in the market since the red traffic light went to orange, and now we're in winter, what lies ahead in the coming months, some future trends, and also what's coming up in the immediate future for these organisations. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ali, red traffic light, then orange, and now into winter. COVID. It's what, 600 members now? Is it more than that?
No, it's just under 600 members. Yeah.
So right across the Nelson Tasman region, what are they talking to you about? What's happening on the ground?
I think the main thing is, you just summed it up. You know, red traffic light was pretty awful. Going into orange was not a whole lot better for some, but better for others. And it's the middle of winter, and we know that winter traditionally in Nelson is a very slow time for particularly hospitality and retail. Having said that, I think people are now much more attuned and accustomed to what's happening. They kind of they're feeling more optimistic now than I think they were a couple of months ago. I think that pre-Christmas was really tricky. It was really difficult because people just stopped going out. And I think that summertime hit didn't happen. And that now is starting to play out in terms of how people are feeling. So they knew going into this time of year, the surpluses and the buffer wouldn't be there. And now that's what they're feeling. But there is a sense of optimism as they can see that, particularly in hospitality, people are in the region who are coming from outside, coming from overseas, which is pretty exciting. There's been quite a few Australians in town recently, so I think, not out of the woods yet, but certainly seeing a few chinks.
Fiona, I guess from your organisation's point of view, I guess you're keeping an eye on what's happening with the government, and then you're rolling out holistic strategies across the region. What are you observing with what's happening at the moment?
It's a similar pattern, isn't it? We're seeing, and right across the country, yes, things are picking up the same challenges with workforce and labour skills and shortages. The freight and supply challenges and issues are not going away anytime soon. But yes, the bookings in terms of the international bookings are really picking up. We were Simon and I were at a tourism network function last night, and several of the operators were talking about good bookings coming for winter, but we're really not expecting those international numbers to come back for another 12, 18 months. But coming up, we've got good interest. We're looking forward to welcoming a delegation from the Tasmanian government in the next month, who are particularly interested in building collaborations with Nelson Tasman. They're doing a delegation across New Zealand, and we're really lucky to attract them to this region. They're looking at export potential links, other partnerships. So it's positive coming up, but we have got that challenge with workforce and skills. You know, we're seeing it in every business at the moment, including ourselves. But yeah, we're looking forward positively. It's been a really difficult time, and obviously we're coming out of that time into the flu season. Simon,
Uniquely Nelson responsible for marketing the CBD, but also liaising with a lot of people on the ground and talking to retailers. So the CBD life itself, after the red traffic light, how has that experience been?
Yeah, I think all our three organisations are singing from the same song sheet, in the sense that labour shortages is a big one, especially in hospitality and retail. Pretty much boots on the ground, walking around town, and you'll see we're closed for the day, we're closed for 3 days, and that's directly related to COVID. Having said that, I see the CBD as it's like a heartbeat. We're up 1 minute, down the next, up 1 minute, down the next. But having said that, hospitality in the last couple of weeks has been very buoyant. It's been some of the retailers as they are still ordering stock in for summer, but probably not as much. What I find really interesting, pre-COVID, this time of the year, or May, June, July, you get a lot of the businesses, we're midwinter, and where is everybody? As we know, Nelson's a very seasonal town. That hasn't occurred this year at all, because it's to a certain extent, we're all in this together, not just Nelson, but nationwide and globally, that they realise what lays ahead. Speaking to a franchise yesterday, and I said, where do you think we'll be in 6 months, a year and a half? He thinks he predicts that we've actually got quite a good summer coming. And speaking to some of the tourism operators out there, the airports and the accommodation providers, or forecasts are looking actually quite positive. So
Right.
It's a simple case of adapt and survive, work together and collectively, and keep on going.
Keep on trucking. Fiona, tourism, so we're talking about those forward bookings. What are you hearing on the ground with your tourist operators?
Yeah, so they're looking forward to having the international tourists coming back. They're starting to trickle, as I mentioned. The good conferences now returning. We had one point during COVID where it was a cancellation every day in terms of an event or conference. Really positive now to seeing those bookings really coming back thick and fast, and looking forward to a busy winter of conferences and events. Just a couple of the conferences coming back, for example, that really bring the numbers into the city and the region. We've got Tech NZ conference in August with 260 people. We've got photography with 200 people. We've got apples and pears and seafood. Across August, there's literally 1,000 people coming in for those conferences and events alone, which really brings the vibrancy. Interestingly, also, the cruise ships starting to come back, and we've got about 7 booked early next year, and supporting those. Not dealing with the level of scale of cruise ships that somewhere like that Christchurch is dealing with, but it's just getting those numbers coming into the CBD. And as I said, the international bookings are starting again. They take a while to be back at full level, and we know that. We had a lot of discussion with the closure of the eyesight recently, and when we expected the numbers to pick up so that we can get that right in terms of how we best support them. But looking forward to the bookings starting back. And certainly, as I said last night at that event, several of the operators seeing really good bookings for winter, which is good.
So, Ali, your members, a bit of optimism when the sun comes out?
Yeah, I think so. And we've already touched on labour, and I think that as we see the borders opening and potentially more people coming through and being able to fill the gap, that's also something that people are looking forward to. I think we're a resilient lot, really, and I think the good thing about this particular region is we've got such a spread of industry. So we're not just one particular sector. We've got some dominant sectors for sure, but actually we've got this wide range of businesses that operate here. So I think we're sort of, I'm not saying we're cushioned from it, but it does spread it slightly. So no, look, and certainly we've got businesses that have never been busier. So it really does depend what you're doing, how much you've converted and managed to move into that e-commerce space or into that the online working. So I think that for a while there, it really was a sort of tale of two regions where one was very much sort of suffering much more, but that's definitely changing. And I think people tend to be, as I say, they're resilient and they tend to be naturally optimistic, it seems. You want to, when you run a business and that's what you do and you get in day out to do that, you're always striving to do your best. So I think you've always got to have that mindset. I think that I don't think it could get much worse.
No, that's right. It's only one way to go.
Exactly. The only way is up right now.
And we've got some really exciting developments coming up for this region in the next 2 to 10 years, to the point of needing to find the labour. We've got the Science Tech Precinct being developed. We've got the hospital redevelopment coming up, potentially the library in the city, and a lot of housing. So there's actually a lot of activities going to be happening. And one of the challenges we're going to need to find is to find the labour and the workforce supply for that, on top of this. On top of the supply issues we're dealing with now. So we have to keep a long-term view as well.
It's interesting because we've got another podcast called Your Home, Building and Real Estate, and they say that the region's still very popular. The phone goes all the time from people outside the region wanting to live here. So that's one of the attractions, isn't it? The lifestyle. Yeah. So the lessons out of COVID, Simon, with retailers operating and future trends, what are some of the observations that you've seen there? They, that horrible word pivot, but, the way that they've traditionally done retail, is that changing?
Yeah, I think COVID has brought about, there's been obviously a huge paradigm shift, is getting more of our businesses and retailers into the e-commerce space, and we're looking at a couple of initiatives of taking Nelson outside Nelson online to bring people to Nelson in that boutique e-commerce space. One thing that has been dearly missed has been the event space, and we took it all for granted. That has come back, I think, with actually quite a big rush, just the amount of meetings we're going to at the moment, whether it's in sports, entertainment, the Arts Festival, October. Targa are coming here mid-October. We're looking at the Nelson Street Hop at the end of October, which will bring in 8,000 to 10,000 people. So there's a lot in that space and gearing up for the likes of Optimum the Park, because it does contribute to the economic and the community welfare of Nelson City. So that's been dearly missed, and there's a lot of people excited about the things coming back, especially as we head towards summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, if there was anybody ever questioned the value of events, which people do,
Yes.
I think now they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, I think it's really demonstrated so well how important they are to any small economy, but particularly somewhere like Nelson that's had a really good range of events when it stopped, how that lifeline really was so important. So, yeah, I hope now that people really understand it, and when support's called for, they get it. Because I think that it's been too easy to take for granted.
Future trends of business. I mean, are we going pretty much back to prior to COVID, or so, Fiona? What are some of the discussions you're having from a strategic point of view around how business is being done and what we learned out of COVID?
I mean, I think the point that you mentioned in terms of the flexibility of the workforce and accelerated us, probably 5 years or 10 years of speed in terms of how much in some businesses we can have our workforce from home. And as you say, it is pivoting and working and adapting very quickly. Some businesses can't, obviously. You can't do boning work at home. There's certainly limitations on that. But in terms of that flexibility and where businesses can operate, and I can't see us going back to the way it was prior in terms of the more fixed hours in the office. There's a much greater level of flexibility where that's possible. And actually what we're seeing with that as well, and combine that with the workforce challenges, is people living here, working away, living away, working here. We're seeing jobs advertised locally. If the sun and the amazing place doesn't appeal to you, you can stay somewhere else and do the job. That's where it's a type of work that you can do. But obviously where it's fixed with its infrastructure, just got some kids waving at me through the window at the radio there. Very nice.
I think they're doing a treasure hunt.
Down here at Founders
We've got a fan base already.
Yes. So in terms of going back, but we've also seen a much stronger level of collaboration happen through COVID, which has been a really, really positive thing. Between some businesses collaborating on a specialist staff member, on others it's a high level of collaboration on joint marketing, and that's been a bit of a pattern that we've seen happen as well.
So, Ali, bit of a challenge for the CBD because more people working from home. I mean, the main centres around the country trying to encourage people back, especially for, say, hospitality. People are working from the suburbs. Where does that leave the CBD? So, I know you've had some discussions with some employers. What are they saying to you?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because the CBD, I mean, visitors to the region are one thing, but people living and working and hopefully living as well close to the CBD are the people that actually feed it on a daily basis. So it is important for those larger companies to actually realise the value of them being here and the commitment they're making to the region by actually encouraging their staff to come back into work, and appreciating that some people might want to do 2 days or 3 days from home, but actually encouraging them to work in the office at some time, I think is important. I also think it's important for the health of the business. It's actually very difficult to manage a disparate workforce all of the time, and particularly if you in challenging times, you want to be able to have that workforce close, certainly 2 or 3 days a week, so that you can actually maintain the culture of your organisation, find all of those things that actually people value in working for you beyond the paycheck, which we know is becoming increasingly important. And so I think that it's a new world for employers, and it's a new world for businesses, particularly small businesses who don't necessarily have that built in because they're 5 or 6 people and that's what they're doing, is they're running their business. But actually it is an important aspect, and it's something that we are talking about a lot at the Chamber, and we dealt with it recently at Aspire, and we'll continue to look at that as an issue for businesses and how we can help them to basically think differently about how they operate. But it's hugely impactful, and Nelson, in a way, we're lucky because we're small enough that actually we're not so far away. The likes of Wellington or downtown Auckland, they've been decimated in part. So hopefully we'll see that change as we continue to work with employers and encourage them to come back. Particularly, I'd just like to say the councils. They've got a large workforce, and those bigger organisations, if they can encourage their workforce back, that's really important.
I was going to the same thing. It says it's having those big organisations, the challenge of bringing the teams back. It is really healthy to have that direct contact, of course, in the workplace. Ali and I both located in the CoLab, and it's actually never been busier in terms of demand for businesses that don't necessarily want to be at home all the time to actually come in and have that collaboration. And yes, encouraging those bigger businesses to encourage their teams back in to get that vibrancy back in the CBD. This come up frequently recently, hasn't it? And we hear some businesses going to quite creative efforts to get people back in, stocking their fridge with great drinks and just that, not alcohol, of course, but just really trying to encourage people to come back in, because you can get very comfortable working at home, and you get so much from the actual direct interaction, don't you?
You've actually got to get dressed and go somewhere.
Exactly.
So
put on some lippy, Simon.
So Simon, is that the talk in the CBD? People talking to you about that flexibility in the workforce? Are they struggling with being able to encourage people back into town?
Yeah, an accountancy firm only this week. He wants the staff back in. And the one thing, I said, well, why if it's working from home? He said the culture.
Right.
We are a business, and when they're not in, we're a family, and half the family's away, and you don't know where they're coming back, sort of thing. So it's one thing that has been, I think, come out of COVID is there's, I talk quite often about there's silos in Nelson, and take the silos down and let's all get on, collectively and do, is that a lot of the businesses, especially in the retail space, not so much in hospitality, have been talking to each other and supporting each other. Fiona and Ellie, what we launched last year for Buddy Out for Business, that was transferable to Richmond Limited, our town Mott. Marlborough District Health Board rang up and asked for it, so we stripped it out and sent it to them, so they put their stuff on it. But a lot more conversation between the businesses, which I don't think was there so much 2 years ago, because we're all in this together.
And right in the middle of that was a city development plan, wasn't it? And a big part of that was trying to get everybody to hop on the bus and, in fact, encourage discussion and debate. So, one of the encouraging things for me is that not only are we trying to get through this period, but the future looks pretty bright with some plans in place.
And the city needs investment. There's no doubt about it. And I think that that's something, that actually that we've got, I think, and I don't know if I'm exaggerating, I might be just for effect, but we've got a whole generation of people who've never seen significant investment in the city. There's been nothing that's actually been spent in any meaningful way. And that is showing. I think we're seeing that now. So, and I know that obviously the council's got some plans and things are coming into play, but it has to happen, and it has to happen sooner rather than later, because it's very easy to start to disconnect from a place when it's not shown the love that it needs to be shown. So I'm really hopeful that all of these things the investment happens, and that happens in actually a much shorter time frame than probably some people would envisage. And it's got to be, I think we need to demonstrate what a loved city looks like when a community invests in it, and I think that's something that's hugely powerful for everything, for the small operators and that wider regional branding.
Well, we've got an election coming up, haven't we?
We certainly have. There'll be some pointed questions, don't you worry.
Okay, Fiona, it's now time to do a shameless plug for some things that are coming up. What's coming up for you at the moment?
I'd pick 3 things, or 4 things perhaps at the moment. Firstly, I'd say it's school holidays time, it's Winter Challenge. Take your families, get your visiting friends and play Nelson. You might have seen the campaign being launched. Huge range of businesses involved. We've got 700 teams on there at the moment. All sorts of challenges to win points, great prizes funded through the Government Destination Management Plan funding, which has been great. It's got about just under 100 businesses involved. One of the very small challenges is to take a photograph of an NRDA car, which is, I thought wouldn't have it. I stepped out of my car yesterday morning and there was a little girl saying, there's a car.
Oh,
but
great.
on a much more serious note, this is actually about really supporting our businesses in the winter time, having our locals be ambassadors for their own region. It's ongoing platform in terms of knowing what to take your visitors to and to support local businesses. So it's a fun challenge, but it's actually addressing a really serious issue, and that is supporting business and really knowing your business. Our locals are our best ambassadors. We're hosting 3 lots of visitors from Australia over the next 6 weeks, and it's a fantastic resource to have. The other one I would mention was, please, businesses listening out there, do join. We have a partnership business panel survey, which Ali and I and the Chamber and NRDA do jointly. We really want to hear from businesses quarterly to keep a finger on the pulse of what the issues. We can then relay those issues and present them as priorities. In the current survey about to go, we're asking about broadband connectivity, hearing from businesses where there are black spots so we can champion that issue. Also coming up is a series of digital capability workshops and training. Uniquely Nelson, one of our partners with that, as many other organisations around the region. So on that subject that Simon mentioned at the beginning in terms of digital capability, it's open for businesses right across the region. They're free workshops over the 12 months. Really encourage people to get in touch with us, to put them in touch with one of the providers for that. And other things coming up, the range of events coming up. Really good range coming up, so get out and enjoy the region. And please, businesses, let us know what the issues are. We are seeing interest from politicians at the moment as we're presenting our priorities for the region. We've worked together on looking at identifying what the investment priorities are, as Ali was just saying, and we're just seeing an increasing number and good interest from politicians. I think Minister Nash is coming down for the Tech NZ conference in August, and as I said, we've got the Tasmanian delegation coming up in August as well, and inviting ministers for that. So it's a busy time coming in the next couple of months.
Exciting. And Ali coming off a sensational Aspire conference, 350 people there. It was great.
Yeah, no, it was fun actually, and it was so nice to actually be able to hold an event. And we had a few people come over from Marlborough, which was great. A few people from Wellington. So it felt lovely to have everybody back together all in the same space, so that was really good. We've actually got a couple of things coming up in the next week or so. Next week we're working with the China-New Zealand Chamber of Commerce. They're doing a roadshow to encourage businesses to start looking at business opportunities in China, specifically around the China import-export event that happens in Shanghai. So we've got a roadshow with them next week, and they're bringing their Consul General up from Christchurch to be part of that, which is good. So anybody who's interested in connecting with China, it just gives some really good information about how to start doing that. We've also, the following week, we are hosting Christopher Luxon in the region. He's coming down to do a few things, and we're having a business lunch with him at Trailway. So if people are interested in that, there's still a small number of registrations left. Well, there were when I left the office, but they're going very quickly. As you can imagine, there's a lot of interest in hearing what he needs to say, which is great. And something a bit further out, which is always a wonderful thing. We run Young Enterprise, which is the high school business competition, which runs nationally, and we run that across the top of the south. And they have their market day in August, or through August. Nita Knight gives them some space in the market, and they can go and sell their wares and try it out on the unsuspecting public. But actually, these businesses are amazing, and they're always really impressive in terms of what they do. So we've got that coming up in August, which is really exciting. And an AGM in a couple of weeks if people are interested in coming out and hearing about what we're up to. We always try to make them a bit of fun.
Yeah, good stuff. Simon, CBD, what's happening leading into spring?
CBD, a big wrap around the businesses, either hospitality or retail, in the next 2 or 3 months, and that's very much boots on the ground. Like I said before, the e-commerce initiative, we'd look at early spring launching that as we come out of August into September. Very much in the event space, a lot of support putting the events that are coming to town as much as we can, and actually putting money into the events as opposed to asking them for money, as in marketing and advertising. So a bit of a turnaround there. We've formalised our relationship with the likes of NMIT for most local, domestic and international, and we just recently virtual reality or VR the whole campus, and they're now using that to generate students from overseas. They had their first group come in They made it to Auckland but missed the plane coming down to Nelson. First overseas students arriving in NMIT this week. So that's,
it's progress.
A lot of people say, it's like all of us in this room, what do we do? We're relationship and networking people, and just bringing people together, connecting. So I find that educational space in supporting our other institutions in Nelson as much as we can.
Thank you very much. Well, that's a wrap, and my thanks to Ali Boswick, Fiona Wilson and Simon Duffy. Really appreciate having you here, and we hope to get together again soon, and perhaps the sun will be out a bit more, and hopefully start talking about some more positive things that are going to be happening in the local market. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much.
You can hear this podcast on talknelson.co.nz or on our Facebook page, and we'll speak to you again soon on Taking Care of Business. Thanks for listening.
What's on, where and when? It's the Talk of Nelson. Talk Nelson Radio.